Resume our recording. All right. Uh, welcome everyone to the Bidders Conference for 501 North Westnedge. My name is Katie Riley. I am the Neighborhood Activator for the City of Kalamazoo. Before we dive in, just an overview of what we're doing today. City staff will be running through the basics about the property and the process. Then we'll open it up for questions. Those of you who have joined via the internet should see a raise your hand button in the lower right-hand corner of your window. And if you've joined us via phone, you'll be able to use *9 to raise your hand. In the meantime, you'll be muted. And when we get to the Q&A, I will call your name or the last four digits of your phone number to let you know that you've been unmuted. So to start us off, staff intros, I've introduced myself. Again, I am Katie Riley, Neighborhood Activator, and we'll go to Pete, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Pete Eldridge. I'm the Assistant City Planner, and I also work with reviewing development projects for the city.
Thanks. Jamie, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, good morning. I'm Jamie McCarthy. I'm Sustainable Development Coordinator at the City of Kalamazoo, and I also serve as the staff liaison to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. And I'll talk a little bit later this morning about what that authority does, but they are the organization that's putting out the request for proposals.
Great. And I'm going to quickly adjust our recording because I can see recording icons for the three of us and not Andy. So I'm going to fix that real quick. And then Andy, you'll introduce yourself. One moment. Let's see if this fixes it. Okay, I don't know what's happening with that, but Andy, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Hello, my name's Andy Miller. I'm the Development Project Coordinator. I'm very new to the city, but I will be involved with this project specifically, and kind of I'll serve as a little bit of an ombudsman to help developers kind of navigate the system.
Excellent, thank you. So to start us off, we're going to start with the site itself and some of the basics. So Jamie, if you'll take it away.
Yeah, let me share my screen here. All right, you should be able to see a map of the city here. So the project, or the property that we're talking about today is located at 501 North Westnedge Avenue. And you can see here, it's in this light purple area, which is the Northside neighborhood, north of sort of downtown and located right along Westnedge Avenue. Here we have a more zoomed in map. So you can see the property is here right on the corner of Westnedge and Willard Streets. Westnedge is one way here, southbound, couple of lanes of traffic with some parking. And the property overall is just under a ½ acre in size. It's 0.46 acres. It's currently owned by the City of Kalamazoo. The city acquired it from the county treasurer after it went through tax foreclosure. And now it's being transferred to our Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. And I'll walk you through a couple of pictures and what's currently located on the property in just a moment. I'll first spend a little bit of time talking about what the Brownfield Authority is and what that authority does for the city. So it is an independent authority, but it's it's authorized under the City Commission. And so it has a public board that oversees a lot of the authority's business. And so the sort of purpose of and the mission of the authority is to help get contaminated and blighted properties back to active use and back on the tax rolls. And the authority does that in a couple of different ways, but some of the main things they do is they do hold and sell properties that are blighted or contaminated. And then they also offer tax incentives to individuals or businesses that are looking to redevelop those properties, again, get them back to active use, get a business or residential uses on those properties. And so they do that for both the properties that they own, that's a possibility. And then they also can do that for parcels that are privately owned. And so this is one of those properties that the Brownfield, that whoever's awarded the RFP will be working with the Brownfield Authority, and will be able to look at some of the incentives that they offer and some of the resources that they have for redevelopment. So the property here, you can see it was most recently used as an auto repair shop. So you can see there it has the 4 garage bays that all still work on the front of the building. It's approximately 4,600 square feet. It's a slab on grade, so there's not a basement. And it has an exterior metal siding, and it also has a similar metal wall and metal siding on the inside of the property. And most of the building has cement floor, and then some of those floors have coverings in a couple of the rooms. So again, you see the 4 large bays here. There's also a 5th garage bay on the back of the property. So this is the south side of the property. You'd be facing north, and that's a separate garage bay there. I'll mention that the 4 bays in the front of the property have some equipment left in them. So they have the car lifts that are still in place in those bays. And there are 2 bathrooms located in the property. They have a front reception area, which you can see at that red door with the canopy on the front there. And then there is an office space, sort of a 2nd-story office space that does not appear to be to current code. So it would probably need some work to be able to be a usable space in the future. All right. So you can see there's another small outbuilding. It's actually a pretty decent sized shed, and some of this vegetation has been removed. I wish I would have gotten some updated pictures from our event last weekend. But there is, again, an overhead door and a side utility door to access that space. And then here's another picture of the inside. You can see some of those lifts. The building has been cleaned out. So if you were able to do a tour earlier this week, you saw that the lifts are still there. It has rather tall ceilings in the building, and then most of this garbage and debris has been cleared out. Okay, I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about what we know about the property. It's been used for automotive uses for quite a while. It was used as a gas station in the 1940s. And so because of the gas station there were 5 underground storage tanks that were used and held fuels. And 4 of those, the records showed, were removed at some point and are no longer on the site. And we weren't sure about the 4th underground storage tank. And so in 2019, we had an environmental consultant come onto the property and do some studies to understand, what might still be there at the property. And the result was that they believe that the 4th underground storage tank was removed. So there are no underground storage tanks located in the property to our knowledge. The property does have some soil and water contamination related to those underground storage tanks. And so it is considered a facility under Part 201 of the state's Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Law. And so I want to talk a little bit about what that means. Being a facility or having contamination does qualify the property for tax incentives through the Brownfield Authority. And it does mean that a future owner will have to get a baseline environmental assessment done. This is a pretty common real estate type assessment that's done, and it helps protect the new owner. It basically explains, what the property is like, what contamination is there when the owner buys it, and so that the owner is then protected from having any liability or responsibility for cleaning that up in the future. It's just sort of, giving that proof that, hey, this was already here and caused by a previous owner, and it wasn't caused by the current owner. And then a future property owner does have some responsibilities for owning a contaminated property. We call those due care measures that a property owner has to take. But essentially, it's that a new owner can't exacerbate or make the contamination worse. and that they need to make sure that people are not exposed to it. And at this site, that's going to be pretty straightforward for a future owner because the contamination is under the parking lot that's there. And so as long as the parking lot is kept in place, then that is protective enough for the future owner. And I will say that also because this was operated as a gas station, the state of Michigan has grant funds that can be used to help with any of the cleanup. If one of the proposers decides, or a future owner decides they want to tear down the building and tear out the parking lot and change things, that could cost extra money because of those contaminated soils. And so the state has grant programs that can help with the cost of dealing with that soil. And then also if the new property owners is going to leave everything in place, leave the parking lot in place and maybe recover it, put in a new asphalt layer or something, those are other costs that we can look at since it is, part of the due care responsibilities of the property owner. We can look at some grant or incentive opportunities to help with those costs too. I'm going to stop sharing here and see if, Pete, you want to talk a little bit about the zoning and the uses at the property?
Sure. Yeah, I find this this property to have a lot of potential for reuse. Especially being on the high traffic corridor of North Westnedge and having frontage on a side street. There's good access in and out of the site. Looking at the zoning, it's in the Live Work 1 zone district, which Live Work 1 basically defined as really it's a mixed use zone district. So it allows for a variety of commercial uses as well as residential uses. Now for this particular property, adding residential would be complicated. So, I'm more going to focus on the commercial use application. And, so in addition to, having good flexibility as far as what the property is zoned, the future land use map, which is part of our master plan 2025, designates this property and the adjacent properties along North Westnedge as commercial. So obviously this is being looked at as a commercial corridor that will continue to provide businesses and services to the neighborhood. And of course, it's just on the fringe of the downtown. So, looking at the obvious with all the garage bays, there is a vehicle service category, and within that vehicle service category, the type of uses that could go in there, obviously auto repair, but also car wash, car detailing, specialty vehicle aftermarket products that could be installed. The site could be repurposed for a gas station. It was once a gas station, as Jamie mentioned, but I'm not seeing it go all the way back to that sort of use. But you have a number of garage bays, which provides flexibility for a variety of vehicle type uses. However, because of the way it's zoned, it could also be converted to other uses. Retail could be some sort of a restaurant where there's seating, and the garage doors could be used to provide an open air environment, that sort of thing. And in addition to that, this Live Work 1 zone district also allows for craftsman industrial, which is a very unique category of uses, really allowing flexibility. So what we're talking about craftsmen, we're talking about things like brewing, breweries, distilleries, an arts or ceramics shop, upholstery shop, woodworking, so furniture construction, furniture repair, So those sort of crafts, which you normally think of as, or many people think of as industrial type uses or manufacturing, at a smaller scale, it can easily fit in a neighborhood setting, and it's a needed neighborhood service, especially if it's something like furniture repair, or it's a sewing and upholstery business. So there are a variety of these craftsman industrial uses that, at a neighborhood scale could also go in this building. So you could have a brew pub or a brewery at this location, or something of that nature, or even a little metalworking shop. So there's there's so many other types of uses that could fit, this, the steel frame building with all these garage doors. So, that's just to give a little overview on some of the basic things. But like I said, retail is also allowed. This could be multiple tenant spaces. So you could have, auto repair on one side. You could have vehicle detailing in the small garage bay on the south side of the building. So there could be that option. There could even be a coffee shop, on the south end of the building, and still have some sort of vehicle related service on the north side with the garage bays that face towards Westnedge. So, just lots of options for this site. If someone is looking at redevelopment of the site, as Jamie mentioned, that does add a layer of complexity. But that's, always an option that's out there. I mean, the zone district allows for up to a 3-story structure. We've got impervious cover limits, so that's the footprint of the building and the parking lot and so forth. That you still have to provide a certain percentage of green space on the site. So, if it's repurposed as it's laid out now, we don't get into revisiting these ordinance standards. But if it was to be a wholesale, redevelopment of the site, then we'd be looking at height and impervious cover of the site, and landscaping and stormwater, and a variety of those issues, which, like I said, is not. We're not averse to exploring that either. So, that's really what I wanted to touch on as far as the general zoning of the site, the specific types of uses, the fact that this could be multiple tenants. So that's, another way to look at it, that it could fit, it could fit 2 businesses. Doesn't have to be just one business that occupies the whole building. Katie, did I leave anything out?
I think that was a great overview, Pete. Thank you. And it's a good segue into talking about the RFP. And so I'll let Jamie kick that off. I will note, in addition to what the zoning allows, the RFP does have a list of preferred uses from community engagement. So I would check that out as well, because part of the ranking, which Jamie will get into, I won't go too deep, favors aligning with community desires. So Jamie, if you'll take us away on the RFP.
Sure. So yeah, as Katie mentioned, the way that this property is kind of up for sale is through this request for proposals process. And the whole idea behind a request for proposal is, instead of just, selling the property to the highest offer, we really wanted to take a look at the neighborhood plan. The Northside neighborhood has their own plan that they completed a couple of years ago, and think about how this property can help fulfill maybe just a small part of that plan, or at least, be in alignment with that plan. So overall, some things to keep in mind especially when we were working with a committee of Northside residents to develop the request for proposals, we really wanted to think about the goals for the community and the goals the neighborhood had for themselves, which was increasing the number of resident-owned businesses, especially those owned by African Americans and low-income residents. That was a priority that came out of the neighborhood plan. And to work on preserving some of the existing homes and also trying to build new housing also to accommodate residents' needs in the neighborhood. The residents felt like it was an important goal to help make or provide more opportunities for arts and culture, and to have more open space as part of the Northside neighborhood's, way of life and as an amenity in the neighborhood. And then also to strengthen workforce development, safety, and youth programming. And you're going to see all of those neighborhood goals have kind of worked their way into the list of uses or types of businesses that the neighborhood wants to see opened on the property here. And as Katie mentioned, those are all listed in the RFP, so you can kind of look those up. It's a pretty long list of different uses that the neighborhood thought would work really well in this spot. So I'll start out by saying that the request for proposals, the document that gives you all of this information we're going to cover today, can be found at imaginekalamazoo.com. And then when you get to that website, if you click on the projects tab right at the top, there's a button, you'll be able to see the 501 North Westnedge property and be able to download the request for proposals. Katie, are those also located at the NACD offices, correct?
Yeah, hard copies of the RFP are available at the Northside Association for Community Development offices, as well as at Community Planning and Economic Development in a kiosk in our front entryway. Our office address is, somebody help me out.
245 North Rose.
Thank you. At that address, there's a kiosk of paperwork when you enter the building, and you can find hard copies of the RFP there as well.
Okay. So in the RFP, you're going to see that the city is looking for applicants and project ideas that are hopefully coming from Northside residents who are interested in maybe starting a business, or maybe it's current business in the North Side who wants to expand or has a reason that they need to move. And one of the best uses, or one that would rank the highest in this competitive process, would be one that serves residents and the types of services or goods that they need, that they should be affordable based on the area's income. And residents had indicated in some of the meetings that were held that they were interested in personal services like shoe repair, a laundromat, and computer repair, things like food service like restaurants or cafes, coffee shops, butcher shop, maybe a 24-hour daycare service. That was one of the services that was recognized that would really help serve the neighborhood. And then different types of entertainment too, like Black History Museum was talked about, an arcade or a dance studio, art galleries, all sort of examples of types of uses that would be really appropriate for this site, that the neighborhood and the residents would be really interested in seeing and using, and would be pretty competitive in the RFP process. There were also some social services, I'll include those too, that residents brought up that would be needed and used in the neighborhood, like a youth center, urgent care center, other healthcare type facilities, or employment resources as well. And again, if you go to that RFP in Appendix 2, you'll see a full list of the different types of uses, services, and businesses that the neighborhood was really interested in seeing come to this location. Okay, so there's sort of a stepwise process that's explained in the RFP. And the first step for anyone who's interested in putting in a proposal idea is to make sure you get your letter of interest or letter of intent into the city by November 30th. And in the RFP, you can see two different ways to submit that. You can send it by email, that's totally fine. or you can submit it by mail in writing if that's how you choose to submit it. And really the letter needs to cover sort of three things. It just needs to state that you're interested in submitting a proposal, kind of give a little bit of information of who you are and what your relationship is to the north side. And then also then spend a little bit of time describing your project idea. And so those are just sort of three things: introduce yourself, describe your relationship to the neighborhood, and put down your project idea in that letter and submit that by November 30th. And then from there, applicants have until January 15 to put together their full proposal. And I'm going to talk through all the different elements that need to go into your proposal, or all the different topics that need to be covered and explained in your proposal. So in section 4, it talks about the proposal requirements for the full proposal that's due January 15th. So that is an introduction of the applicant and describe more anyone who's helping out with the project. This we call the development team, right? You know, who, if you have an architect or you have anyone helping you with a development or an engineering firm, or anyone who's going to be any business partners, people, other tenants, or anyone else that's going to be helping put together the proposal and involved in the project, kind of describe them and their different experiences. And then you should spend, in that introduction section, spend some time talking about, again, your relationship to the Northside neighborhood, and any status that your business has as minority owned or woman owned business. That's also good information to put in there and helps in the scoring. And then you'll be asked to make sure you have like the main contact person be listed and all of their contact information. Then there's a couple of different plans that need to be described in the request for proposal. So this is a development plan. You know, how do you plan to use the site? Is it reusing the existing building and remodeling or rehabbing it in a certain way? If that's your plan, then you should, you know, go ahead and kind of describe what the work is that's going to be done to the property. If, you know, you have this project idea that involves tearing down a portion of the building, or all of the building, or maybe adding an addition onto the building, or building out other parts of the property, changing up that parking lot, anything like that, you can, again, just describe, you know, what it is you would plan to physically do to the property to get it to how you need it for the business or businesses you plan to operate there. And then a couple of the other items that would need to be described is some of your operational plans. So once the development is complete, once that physical work is done, it's, you know, how it's going to be operated, what businesses are going to be there, or business is going to be there, what types of jobs or housing might be created. And then you should make sure to be thinking about and listing out any permits you might need, or licensing, if those are required to run your business, kind of listing those out, and either your plans to get those, or if you already, maybe if you're moving your business, you already have those permits and licenses, and you can just list those in the proposal. Okay, there's also some details in the RFP about what the different pieces of information that you should include with that development concept. And you can see those, but those are talking about, you know, what's your total square footage you're going to use for what kinds of business or businesses, how these businesses will help benefit the surrounding community. Again, some estimate of jobs, whether those are just jobs from the new business, or maybe there's going to be some construction in your proposal. So what sort of construction jobs will be generated by your project? And then you can, you know, provide any, again, those regulatory issues. If you need permits or licenses to run your business, then list those in there. The request for proposal also requires some level of design, a design concept submitted with the proposal, but that can be a graphic, that can be, you know, a really general building concept or site concept. It can also be a written description if you don't have maybe a design professional or the drawing skills yourself. You can totally put that in there as a written description of, where if you're going to leave the building or change the parking, kind of talk about how you're going to physically use the space in that half acre. And then one of the last pieces that we're asking to be included in the request for proposals is a bit about the financial plan. So how are you planning to, so a description of what you think the costs are going to look like to get this property to the condition that you need for your business, right? So that's describing how much you're wanting to pay for the property, what those costs will be, those hard costs, if you are going to be doing any rehab or redevelopment of the property or additions or working on the parking lot, changing up any of the garage spaces, building anything out in the inside. All of that should be described and have sort of your estimate, your best estimate of the cost that will be involved. You can include in there any of your soft costs. So these are things like paying an architect or an engineer, any legal or accounting fees, or any of the sort of professional fees, permits, insurance, things that it takes, to get this property, again, into the shape and the condition that you need for your business. And so you can include that in a budget. And then on the flip side of that, we want to see what are some of the financing sources. So talk about, what are any equity you have to add to the project, or if that's a bank financing commitment or other investors, letters of interest or letters of commitment, just to show that you have some financing and support, financial support to back up the plan and all of the costs that'll go into it. And let me talk a little bit about how the RFP addresses the asking price. And I say that we don't really have like a true asking price in that RFP. What you see is that there is a true cash value for the property that came from the city assessor's office, and that's just over $140,000. But what the Brownfield Authority is looking to do is really to get all or some of the investment that they have in the property back. And so you can see that in the RFP. Let me scroll to that section to make sure I give you the right number here. So the current investment that the Brownfield Authority has in the property is around $45,000. And a competitive bid will try to reflect that price in maybe an offer price, or if you have, an idea that if we see a proposal that has an idea that just aligns really well with what the neighborhood wants, it has a use that the neighborhood wants, it's all of the costs that will take to get the property and the business started, those finances are all in place. We will look for, there are other ways that we can get that $45,000 investment back as far as the Brownfield Authority is concerned. So you can put in an offer that you feel like, works in your business plan, but overall the Brownfield Authority would like to try to get around $45,000 as a price, but we want to let folks know that that is flexible, and that if you have any questions about that, definitely reach out to myself. We can talk about how are ways that the Brownfield Authority could recoup their costs and help push the project forward. Okay. So let me go through the schedule a little bit. Again, that letter of intent is due November 30th. And then that gives folks about a month and a half to get their full proposals together, get all that information that we just talked about on, on paper and firmed up and put together as a proposal to the Brownfield Authority. And then those proposals are due January 15th. And again, those can be, the RFP explains how you can submit those by mail or you can submit those by email. And then our committee, it's going to be a resident committee, and some members of the Brownfield Authority will be meeting at the end of January to look over those proposals and probably hold some interviews and meet with the development teams of the top proposals and do those in February. And then hopefully by March, we'd like to have a recommendation in front of the Brownfield Authority and a winner selected sometime in March of 2021. Okay, so one of the last things you should take a look at in the request for proposals is how the committee will look at and evaluate the different proposals, because this will help you kind of create and make the most competitive proposal that you can. And so it talks about all of the different how all of the different areas will be ranked, all the different information that is submitted will be ranked. And so, you know, they'll look at the development concept, and those that are really detailed, that seems like a realistic, feasible proposal that also keeps the neighborhood goals in mind, those will be ranked more highly. And then, you know, let's say it's a proposal that is feasible and seems realistic, it, you know, meets the zoning, but maybe it doesn't quite align as well with the neighborhood plan, then it might be ranked, you know, a little bit lower. And then no points, or, you know, low ranking is if, you know, the proposal doesn't seem to have the financing match the costs and it doesn't align with the plan, those will get ranked a little bit lower. And then similarly, we're looking for the design. When we look at the design concept, we want to see something that's really compatible with all the guidelines in the RFP. It's really meeting the goals and the objectives of the neighborhood committee that put together the request for proposals. And so those will be ranked the highest. And then similarly with the financing plan, right? The committee will take a look at that one. We'll look at if the pro forma seems competitive, you know, if it seems realistic and feasible, if it has the financing that's needed to make all the investments in the property that are necessary to get the business open, and that there's operating capital or a plan, or even if it's an existing building and there's sort of that several years of success that business has been able to operate and be successful for a couple of years. Those are all important things to put into your request for proposals. And then also, then those are going to be ranked as highly advantageous. They'll get some sort of the highest ranking when we're comparing the different proposals. So I think that kind of covers requests for proposals. I guess there's one last thing I wanted folks to be aware of. What page is this? Page 14. There are some disqualifiers that anyone who's putting in a proposal should be aware of. The committee will also do a check to make sure that if it's a current business or individual, that they're in compliance with a couple of areas. One being if there's any delinquent taxes that the individual or the business has, those really should be taken care of before the RFP or before you put in your proposal, because those will be a disqualifier if you have outstanding delinquent property taxes or personal property taxes. We'll also be looking at water and sewer. So if you have any past due charges on water and sewer, you'll want to get those up to date. We'll be looking at other properties that the business might own or operate and making sure that there aren't any code violations or inspection issues with abandonment or any substantial like disrepair. Those are all, you'll want to take care of all of those before you apply or as you get your proposal in. And then also, I just wanted to make a point to say that we will look at relationship of the developer and the development team and make sure that they're not immediate family or anyone who's been employed with the city for the last 12 months, just making sure we don't have any conflicts. So again, you can look at that on page 14. It kind of talks about some of those disqualifiers, and a lot of these things are things you can take into consideration and get taken care of before you put in your proposal. Katie, anything else you wanted me to cover in the proposal, or things you think are important for folks to take a close look at when they're putting together a proposal?
No, I think that was a really great overview. Thank you, Jamie. The one thing that I just want to say before we move on is that another thing that's going to really be looked at when ranking proposals is a priority is that neighborhood ownership and existing neighborhood resident or business. We're really looking to support people from the north side in this redevelopment project. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then overall, if you have questions about the RFP, where to go, Jamie is your lady. Jamie, if you wouldn't mind putting out your email for folks if they have questions for follow-up.
Yeah, and there is an email address, development@kalamazooCity.org, that's right in the RFP. If you send something to that email address, it will get to me. Otherwise, my personal email address is my last name, Mccarthy, JA@kalamazooCity.org. You can see how I spell my name in the corner there, but it's McCarthy, JA@kalamazooCity.org. Give me a phone call, might not be a bad way either. My direct line is 337-8789.
Great.
And then I can definitely get folks connected to others at the city, right? So I can certainly answer questions about any of those environmentals, any of the, like if you're working on your proposal and you want to put in a cost for that baseline environmental site assessment, we can, I can help you through that. I can talk more about that pricing or that sale, since we don't have just like a sales price on the property, but talking about a way you can maybe get to that 45,000. If you're not just, wanting to put in a $45,000 offer, we can talk about ways that can happen. The Brownfield Authority does have ways to capture the taxes on the property, and that can maybe be a good strategy on helping get to that $45,000. And then also I can help connect you with other folks at the city. So, Andy's new, but he's going to be working with some of our business development staff and some of the grant dollars we have available there. I also mentioned that state grant for environmental cleanups. That's one I'm totally happy to chat with anyone about and sort of see how that might work into your pro forma or your budget for the property.
Great, thanks, Jamie. The next thing that we just wanted to quickly cover, we won't necessarily go too in depth in this, but just so everyone knows, if you are new to developing a property like this or taking on a project like this, there are a number of city programs that you might be able to take advantage of. Jamie has mentioned a few, and as Andy said, he is new, but will be working a lot with the business development and be able to help you with that. Jamie or Andy, is there anything related to that you want to say before we move on to some frequently asked questions?
I think Jamie covered it pretty well. So all I will say is that my direct line is 337-8776. And my email address is Miller A and the number 2. So MillerA2@KalamazooCity.org.
All right, great. So before we open up the meeting to questions from our attendees, we have a couple frequently asked questions that we wanted to cover. The first one being, do I have to keep the building in my proposal?
I can jump in here. I think we're looking for proposals that have all sorts of ideas. So I think that being able to reuse the building, if that works for your business, that's, a great plan forward. There's nothing wrong with that. If you had a big plan to do something really different on that whole corner, what Pete talked a little bit about the zoning and the flexibility and what you could build there. And so that's, that would be looked at also. I think that'd be very competitive. So I think there's the whole spectrum of use the building as is, remodel parts of it, or even taking the building down and reusing that space in a different way. Those are all ideas that we'll look at and sort of competitive ideas.
Great, thanks, Jamie. The next question is, where can I access any environmental assessments or studies that have been done? I can cover this one. On the project page on imaginekalamazoo.com, we have the environmental assessments as well as an asbestos test that was done on the building available for download. And so all of that information is up on that page as well. Our next,
Katie,
yeah,
if you don't mind, I was going to share my screen and just show folks that website.
Yeah.
Since we've been talking about it. So
Yes.
This is imaginekalamazoo.com. And if you go to projects here at the top, the projects button.
I don't know if it's showing, Jamie. There we go.
Okay. So yeah, the projects button at the top here. And then if you scroll down, you should see 501 launch is one of the active ones right here at the top. And here you're going to find a bunch of information about the property. So I talked a little bit about the environmentals. All of those studies have been done by the city, and any applicants are able to access those and use those however you want. You can read about the whole history of the property, how it's been used in the past, and some of that contamination that's left just in that southeast corner of the parking lot. So not under the building. It just seems to be in that front corner where there's a parking lot already over top in place. You can also download the request for proposals here. You can get all sorts of information on who to contact. There's a fact sheet that talks about Brownfield throughout the state of Michigan and the different incentives that are involved or can be utilized. There's also some talk about environmental cleanup and some of the state resources that are available to developers. And then, yeah, as Katie mentioned, we did have an asbestos survey done on the property as well. They didn't have to take a lot of samples, and then none of the samples came back showing any asbestos. So hopefully that won't be any sort of issue for anyone who's, reusing the building or tearing the building down. It looks like there shouldn't be any asbestos issues to deal with. And then again, you'll see more about the process, when the deadlines are for applicants to get their materials in, and then also when you might hear back from the Brownfield Authority and the resident committee that's going to be working on reviewing all of those applications.
Yeah, and since we're looking at the site, the other thing to note is that a video tour of the building, in case you didn't get a chance to see it, will be posted on that site, as well as a recording of this panel if you need to come back and reference it, or you want to share it with someone. Our next frequently asked question is, what is the plan for the existing automotive tools in the building as well as the shed?
Yeah, I can jump in here. Right now, we're leaving those all of that equipment in that shed on the property. We'd like to look at all of the proposals and kind of see, what proposals we get, what types of businesses are going to be using those spaces. And then we can talk about, if the proposal says they want to, if you want to keep some of that equipment or you find that would be useful, then put that in your proposal. And then we can make sure that when we're kind of working out the fine details of a purchase and a project there, that we can include that equipment in your purchase agreement if that's what works for the business. If it's really important for your project to have those things removed because you don't want the cost or the spend the time to get rid of those, then we can talk about that as the Brownfield Authority. Can we pay to get that stuff hauled off or get rid of it? So it's really flexible. I think that if there's anything that's useful in that building to your business and to your project idea, then make sure to include that in your proposal.
Great. All right. And the final thing, just because we know that there's been talk about this building in the past, ever since the city and the BRA got control of it, and it's been a question that's come up. Are there any plans already in place for the building, just to cover all of our bases in that?
Yeah, so the work that we've done so far on the building is just to get it prepared as best we can for any future use. So we've had the property cleaned out, as I mentioned. So anyone who took a tour this week, it looks a lot cleaner than those photos. Had some of the vegetation cut down around it, trying to clean it up just a little bit, and then getting some of those environmental studies done. And the asbestos survey was really important. But basically the work that we've done to date is just to get it ready for redevelopment for whatever its future use is going to be. And we've really worked through the process and are using this RFP to help the neighborhood and the neighborhood residents decide, what's going to be most useful for them on this corner. So I don't think we have any plans other than trying to make it attractive for redevelopment and get a use in there that really fits the neighborhood's vision.
Great. Thanks, Jamie. All right, so now it's time to open up for any questions from our attendees. Again, just to reiterate the ways to raise your hand. If you've joined us through the internet, you should see a raise hand button that you can click, and then I will unmute you so you can ask your question. If you have called in, you will hit *9 and that will raise your hand. And again, I will unmute you. Once you're unmuted, I will either call your name or the last 4 digits of your phone number to let you know that you're unmuted and can ask your question. So does anyone have any questions for our panelists? Okay. All right. Action planning, you are unmuted and can ask your question.
Hi, yes. Can Andy, Mr. Miller, could you please repeat that email for me again, please?
Absolutely. It's Miller A and the numeral 2 at kalamazooCity.org. There happens to be 2 Andy Millers at City Hall, so that's what the A2 is for. Did you get that, sir?
Yes, I did, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Benjamin Stanley, you are unmuted.
I was thinking about a year-round farmers market, and I don't know if that would go into almost like competition with the farmers market that the city already has.
Katie, I'm wondering if you want to speak to any of the neighborhood's goals or desires around fresh food or a farmer's market in this location, right? And as opposed to, getting across town to where the other one is located. Do you have any insights on that one?
I know that access to fresh food is important in the North Side. And I know that the Northside Association for Community Development has been working on developing different facets of that, including they might be looking at a market. So I would recommend visiting them and talking to the executive director, Maddie Jordan Woods, about what you want to do and see what opportunities there might be to partner and to reach some mutual goals or ideas.
Thank you. And then one last quick question. If somebody works the elections, does that count as a city employee? Thank you.
No, I do not think that counts as a city employee. All right. Do we have any other questions? Okay. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any raised hands. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you to the city staff for joining us on this Saturday and our participants for calling in. Just another reminder that this has been recorded and we will be reposting it on the website as well as the staff members will have their information available to reach out to, related to the topics that they're able to cover. So that information will all be on imaginekalamazoo.com on the projects page, the 501 launch. So again, thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a great weekend. And I believe that is the end of our panel.
Thank you, Katie.
Thanks.
Look forward to all the
Thank you.
ideas. Thanks, everyone. Katie,